was years ago. And you and I were out to dinner with a friend, and this is before we moved to New York. And we were talking about the move and how we were going back and forth with the idea. We weren't really sure because there were many steps. At that time, we had, I think, just 3 kids. And we mentioned Josh, and we said, with his therapy, we have to set it up. We have to make sure it's the right, we can get the right support for him in New York. And our friend turned to us and he's like, why does Josh need therapy? What do you mean? And I looked at him and I was like, he has Down syndrome, right? And he's like, what? I'm like, come on. He's like, no, I said, I mean, he wasn't around our family that much really, but he certainly had met Josh and he had been with us. And I guess it just had never come up in conversation. And then he paused and he said, no, you know what it is? You just don't wear it. And that's why it struck me and stayed with me, because I think we are very often the worst thing that happened to us. We hold on to that disappoint.
Or the worst things happening to us right now.
Right. And then we wear that, right? And so of course, then it's hard to get past that. And we wear our emotions on our faces and our bodies. I mean, sometimes I look at people who are older and you can see if they laughed a lot in their life or they frowned a lot in their lives, because they sometimes become really etched in our skin. I mean, in extreme ways for certain people. Feelings of betrayal, resentment, and sadness become those lines on our faces. And it's the foundation of our identity. And ultimately, it's the way we express ourselves into the world. So my default emotion is sadness. And I'm sure that is the case for others as well. And of course, there are different, the common emotions that we all share are anger, fear, resentment, and shame. And I came to understand that sadness was my default emotion when I started to look back at my life and the things that had happened. And my first experience with sadness actually was after my family moved from Louisiana to California following a devastating financial setback. But I identified my default emotion years later when I found myself in a state of sadness again, when I was going through an eating disorder. And then I found that was the theme. Whenever something like a life quake would happen in my life, something that was really challenging, I would go to a place of sadness. And not everybody responds like that. Again, for some, that is their default emotion as well. Others, it could be anger, it could be shame. It's different for everybody. And I'm generally, I think, upbeat, not compared to you. But when I start to feel sad, that I have learned to pay attention to, because it's an indication that there's something going on in my life that I really do need to pay attention to that I'm just not yet.